I worked for the company for 5 years, and then my boss fired me for a small mistake and called me names in front of everyone. I knew he was using corporate funds for his own purchases. I collected evidence and sent it to the head office. A month later he was fired without compensation, and I was invited back to an even better position. My boss humiliated me in front of everyone, but he had no idea I was about to destroy his entire career. I worked in that company for 5 years. 5 long years of staying late, doing extra work, and covering up mistakes that weren't even mine. I wasn't perfect, but I was loyal. And yet, one tiny mistake, literally a miscalculation that didn't even cost the company money, was enough for my boss, Mark, to explode. He didn't just scold me in private. No. He dragged me into the center of the office, raised his voice, and called me incompetent in front of 30 of my colleagues. I can still remember the heat on my face. The way my coworkers avoided eye contact. Some of them even laughed nervously. I wanted to sink through the floor. And then, as if public humiliation wasn't enough, he fired me. On the spot. No discussion, no second chance. Just a brutal dismissal, paired with a smirk that said, "You were nothing anyway." But here's the thing about Mark. He wasn't as clean as he pretended to be. Everyone in the office suspected it, but no one dared to question him. You see, Mark had this flashy lifestyle that didn't exactly match his salary. A brand new luxury car every 2 years, vacations in exotic places, watches worth more than half of my yearly pay. Rumors floated around, but he always brushed them off with jokes or excuses. When he fired me, though, something snapped. That humiliation burned so deep that all I could think was, if I'm going down, he's going down with me. At first, I didn't even know where to start. But then I remembered the files. Mark wasn't the careful type. He'd often leave receipts, expense reports, and documents lying around the office. And during those years of staying late, I had noticed little inconsistencies. A business trip that looked more like a personal vacation. Company funds used for client gifts that suspiciously matched the exact model of his new phone. Back then, I ignored it. I was too focused on surviving, on climbing the ladder, on keeping my job. But now I had nothing to lose. I spent the first week after being fired pretending to be devastated. My former coworkers thought I had disappeared into depression. In reality, I was building a case. I dug through old emails, saved copies of expense reports I had handled, and pieced together patterns. The more I connected the dots, the clearer it became. Mark was siphoning off company money for years, hiding it under vague expense labels and fake invoices. And the best part? He had grown sloppy. The arrogance of someone who thought no one would ever question him. The plan started forming in my head. I wouldn't just expose him to the team. That would do nothing. He'd twist the story and make me look bitter. No, I needed to go straight to the top. The board. The corporate headquarters. The people who could actually crush him. But I knew it wouldn't be enough to just send some receipts. I had to make it undeniable. Ironclad. A case so airtight that even Mark's silver tongue couldn't talk his way out of it. So I became meticulous, patient, dangerous. Every evening, I sat at my desk, surrounded by papers, highlighters, and folders. I created spreadsheets of transactions. Cross-referenced dates with receipts. Matched business dinners with Instagram posts of Mark eating sushi with his girlfriend. Every lie unraveled into hard evidence. And the more I uncovered, the more satisfying it became. Each receipt I matched, each inconsistency I exposed, it felt like a small victory, a tiny step closer to justice. My humiliation that day at the office had turned into fuel. By the end of 2 weeks, I had a file thick enough to bury him. But revenge isn't just about evidence. It's about timing, delivery, the right punch at the right moment. I could have sent it all to corporate immediately. But no, that would be too easy. I wanted him to feel safe. I wanted him to believe he had won. So I waited. I stayed quiet. Meanwhile, Mark strutted around the office as if nothing had happened. I heard from friends still working there that he bragged about cleaning out the deadweight. That dead weight was me. And he was basking in his false sense of power. Perfect. Because what Mark didn't know was that his entire empire of lies was about to collapse. And I was the one holding the detonator. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted Mark to choke on the same humiliation he fed me. While Mark paraded around the office like a king, I worked in silence. My plan wasn't just to expose him, it was to dismantle him, piece by piece, until there was nothing left of the empire he thought he built. The first step. Leverage. See, companies like ours don't move quickly unless there's undeniable pressure. I couldn't just send a neat little package to corporate and expect them to act overnight. No, I had to light a fire under them. I had to make it impossible for them to ignore me. So I created duplicates. 3 copies of the file. 1 physical binder, 1 encrypted flash drive, and 1 cloud backup under a fake account. Each one contained spreadsheets, receipts, and screenshots meticulously organized by category: personal vacations, luxury purchases, fake clients. And to give it more bite, I attached social media posts, geotags, and even audio notes of conversations I'd secretly recorded when Mark bragged about how easy it was to trick the company. That audio. Gold. His voice, laughing about how corporate was too stupid to notice him draining their funds. That was going to sting. But still, timing. I didn't want to act yet. I wanted to see him sink deeper into his arrogance. So I started feeding little rumors. Quietly. Carefully. I still had friends inside the office, people who hated Mark but were too scared to say anything. Over drinks, I'd casually mention, "Isn't it weird how Mark always has money for luxury vacations?" Or, "Don't you think it's odd that his expense reports never get audited?" I didn't push too hard, just enough to plant seeds of doubt. And like wildfire, gossip spread. Suddenly, people were whispering behind his back. Not openly, but enough that Mark started noticing. One of my friends texted me. He asked us today if anyone was spreading nonsense about him. He looked pissed. Good. Let him sweat. Meanwhile, I was perfecting the delivery. Sending the evidence was easy, but I wanted to twist the knife. So I drafted an anonymous email to corporate HQ, signed only with "a loyal employee who cares about integrity." In it, I didn't just dump the evidence. I wrote a story. A narrative of betrayal, theft, and arrogance. I painted Mark as a parasite who drained the company dry while stepping on the very people who made it successful. I ended the email with one brutal line. "This man is not only stealing from you, but he is laughing while he does it. Do you really want someone like that representing your company?" But I wasn't ready to send it. Not yet. Because I wanted to watch him fall from the inside first. So I set up one more step. I sent a single receipt, just one, to the company's anonymous ethics hotline. It was small, insignificant compared to the mountain of evidence I had. A $4,000 client dinner that was clearly just him and his girlfriend at a 5-star restaurant. I knew it wouldn't get him fired immediately, but it would trigger something even better: an audit. And oh, did it work! 2 weeks later, whispers reached me. Mark looked rattled. Corporate had requested copies of his last 3 months of expense reports. Suddenly, he wasn't smiling so much. His usual smug arrogance turned into nervous energy. He snapped at employees. He stayed late at the office, probably trying to cover his tracks. Meanwhile, I was sitting at home, sipping coffee, watching it all unravel. The beauty of it. He had no idea it was me. He probably thought some nosy accountant had raised questions. But no, this was personal. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. One of my friends messaged me, "You're not going to believe this. Mark was in a meeting with regional management today. He looked pale. They grilled him for 2 hours. He came out sweating bullets." That was my cue. That night, I hit send. The full file. Every receipt, every spreadsheet, every screenshot, every smug audio recording. Straight to the board of directors. Straight to HR. Straight to the financial compliance team. And then, I waited. Days passed. I stayed silent, resisting the urge to check in. And then, one morning, my phone lit up with a flood of texts from my old coworkers. Holy sh*t, Mark's office is being raided. They took his computer. He looks like he's about to faint. I could almost see it. Him sitting at his desk, watching as investigators combed through his files, pulling out documents he thought he had hidden. The panic, the realization, the collapse of the empire he thought was untouchable. But the best part? I wasn't done yet. Because destroying his career was one thing. Humiliating him in the same way he humiliated me? That was still to come. They dragged me into the center of the office when he fired me, so I made sure he was dragged into the center when he fell. The investigation was already suffocating him. I could tell from the updates I got through friends inside the company. Mark was no longer strutting through the halls like a king. He was skulking. He snapped at people, avoided eye contact, and spent long hours behind a closed office door. But the real entertainment? The whispers. The same whispers he once encouraged about others were now circling around him. Why are the auditors here again? Did you see how red his face was? Something's up with his expense reports. Every little rumor was like gasoline on a fire. His once spotless authority was crumbling into dust. But here's where I twisted the knife. Remember that binder of evidence I made? The one filled with every single damning receipt? I didn't just send it to corporate. I made a duplicate and left it anonymously on the desk of the most gossip-loving employee in the office. I knew she couldn't resist peeking inside. And once she did, it spread. Within hours, everyone knew. Employees who once feared Mark now giggled behind his back. Some printed out screenshots of his business trips and taped them on the break room fridge. Someone even changed the desktop background on his office computer to a picture of a luxury resort he had charged to the company. He was drowning in humiliation, and I was savoring every moment from the outside. But the real show came when corporate finally struck. It was a Monday morning. My phone buzzed with frantic messages. You won't believe this. Mark just got summoned into the conference room. There are 3 guys in suits waiting for him. I think this is it. And it was. Picture this. The same office where I had once been humiliated, where he had thrown me out like garbage, was now the stage for his downfall. Corporate didn't take him quietly into a side office. No, they made it public. They marched right into his glass-walled office, pulled him out, and escorted him into the conference room in full view of everyone. 2 hours later, the door opened. Mark came out pale as a ghost, sweating through his expensive suit. His tie was loose, his hair messy, and his hands shook as he held a single envelope. Then, the announcement. One of the corporate managers stepped into the center of the office and said loudly, effective immediately, Mark is no longer employed with this company. Silence. Then gasps. Then laughter. The same employees who once feared him now grinned openly, watching him pack his things into a cardboard box. He tried to act composed, but his face betrayed him. The redness, the twitching jaw, the desperate glances around the room. And the best part? No compensation. No golden parachute. Just a brutal termination for gross misuse of company funds. Exactly the fate he deserved. But I wasn't finished. See, revenge isn't just about destroying someone's career. It's about balance. Justice. He made me feel small by humiliating me in front of everyone. I wanted him to feel that same sting, that crushing weight of shame that burns in your chest. So I called in one last move. Remember the audio recordings? The ones where he bragged about stealing? Well, I had saved one in particular, the one where he said, laughing, "This company's too dumb to catch me. I could rob them blind, and they'd thank me for it." Guess where that clip ended up? On every single employee's inbox. Sent from an anonymous account. Subject line, "What your boss really thought of you." By lunchtime, the office was buzzing with it. People were replaying the clip out loud, laughing at his arrogance, mocking him. Mark hadn't just lost his job, he had lost every shred of dignity. His name became a joke in the very place he thought he ruled. Meanwhile, I sat at home, watching the storm unfold through texts and calls. Every update was sweeter than the last. He looked like he was going to cry. He stormed out of the building and slammed the door. Honestly, this is the best day we've had at work in years. And then came the cherry on top. A week later, corporate reached out to me. Yes, me, the supposedly incompetent employee he had humiliated. They said they had reviewed the situation, and not only did they apologize for the way things had ended, they wanted me back. With a raise. And a better position. I can't describe the satisfaction of that moment. From nothing to everything. From humiliated to victorious. But as much as I wanted to bask in the glory, I wasn't done telling this story. Because while Mark thought losing his job was the worst thing that could happen, oh no, that was just the beginning of his nightmare. Mark thought losing his job was the worst thing that could happen. He had no idea I had only just begun. After the public humiliation at the office, Mark was done, at least in the corporate world. Stripped of his position, his paycheck, and his dignity, he left that building a broken man. But you know what happens when arrogant people fall? They don't land gracefully. They crash. Hard. The first cracks appeared almost immediately. Mark had built his entire identity around wealth, status, and power. His car, his vacations, his designer suits, all funded by stolen money. Without his job and his access to company accounts, that lifestyle wasn't just unsustainable. It was impossible. 2 weeks after his termination, word spread that the company had frozen all his severance and launched legal action to recover stolen funds. His bank accounts were being investigated. That luxury car he bragged about? Repossessed. The condo he had just bought? Gone. And the client dinners, that were really expensive dates with his girlfriend? She suddenly disappeared too. Turns out her love didn't run as deep without the champagne and 5-star trips. Karma had clocked in for overtime. But my favorite part wasn't the financial collapse. It was the social collapse. Remember how Mark loved being the center of attention? The guy who strutted around, making everyone else feel small? Well, now he was the center of attention in a very different way. Everyone in the industry knew about his firing. The audio clips, the receipts, the scandal, it had spread like wildfire. He wasn't just unemployed. He was radioactive. No company would touch him. No recruiter would call him back. His name was tainted. I even heard from a friend in HR at another company. Oh, we got his application. It went straight into the trash. Nobody wants to hire the guy who embezzled half his last employer's budget. Ouch. And then came the personal life. See, Mark wasn't exactly a family man, but he did have a wife. A wife who had been enjoying the vacations, the jewelry, the endless flow of cash. And when that money dried up, so did her patience. Within a month of his firing, she filed for divorce. She took the house, the remaining savings, and left him with nothing but debts. I can't lie, when I heard that, I laughed. Loud. But here's the thing. I hadn't even lifted a finger at that stage. All of this, the repossessions, the divorce, the unemployment, was just the natural consequence of his arrogance. It was karma doing its job. Still, I couldn't resist making sure his downfall stayed permanent. So I sent one more package. Not to corporate this time. Not to employees. To the press. Yes, I leaked the story to a local business journal. I made sure they got every juicy detail. The fraud, the vacations, the arrogance, the recordings. They published an article titled, "Local Executive Fired for Embezzlement. Company Too Dumb to Catch Me," he allegedly said. It spread everywhere. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. His name was plastered online. Comments poured in, mocking him, ridiculing him, turning him into a walking meme. And Mark. He couldn't escape it. Employers Googled his name, friends distanced themselves, neighbors whispered. Everywhere he went, he was that guy. From king of the office to a pariah overnight. The irony? He once told me, back when I was still working under him, reputation is everything in this business. Lose that, and you're done. He said it smugly, as if he were untouchable. And now, his own words had become his curse. But I wasn't doing this just for fun. I wanted him to feel it, that suffocating weight of being powerless. of knowing you can't fix what you destroyed, of realizing you brought it all on yourself. One night, I got a message from an old coworker. "You won't believe this. I saw Mark at the grocery store. He looked different. No fancy suit, no watch, no confidence. Just a guy in sweatpants, buying instant noodles. He looked like he aged 10 years. That image stayed with me. The once arrogant man who had screamed at me in front of 30 people was now reduced to a shadow, standing in line with a basket of cheap groceries, praying no one would recognize him. But the best part? He knew someone had done this to him. I'm sure he suspected, but he could never prove it. Maybe he replayed the day he fired me over and over in his head. Maybe he realized the incompetent employee he mocked was the one who held the knife. And every time that thought crossed his mind, it must have burned like acid. Justice wasn't just served. It was plated, garnished, and delivered with a smile. But I had one final move to make, the cherry on top of this perfectly baked revenge. Because while Mark was living in ruins, I was about to rise higher than ever before. And he would have to watch from the gutter as I took the very seat he thought I could never deserve. They said revenge doesn't solve anything. But watching Mark sink while I rose higher than ever? That solved everything for me. After months of watching him crumble, the final stage of my plan fell into place. Remember how corporate begged me to come back? Well, I didn't just return. I came back with power. They offered me a higher position, a bigger salary, and, best of all, an office with a glass wall. The same kind of office Mark once sat in, looking down on everyone. Only this time, I was the one inside. Walking into that building again was surreal. People who once looked away when I was humiliated now greeted me with smiles. The nervous laughter that once cut me like knives was replaced with congratulations. And when I passed Mark's old office, now empty, stripped of his things, I couldn't help but smirk. Poetic justice. But here's where it gets delicious. You'd think after losing everything, Mark would quietly fade away. Wrong. He tried to fight back. He sent angry emails to corporate, claiming he was set up. He even hinted at suing the company for wrongful termination. But when the investigators laid out the evidence in front of him, the receipts, the spreadsheets, the recordings, he had nothing. He was caught red-handed, trapped in his own lies. And while he flailed, I thrived. I used my new position to rebuild the office culture he had destroyed. I treated people with respect, gave credit where it was due, and, slowly, morale improved. Productivity went up, people were happier, and corporate noticed. Within 6 months, I wasn't just the guy who came back. I was the guy who saved the office. Meanwhile, Mark's life kept spiraling. The divorce finalized, leaving him broke. His house was gone, his car repossessed, his reputation poisoned. The last I heard, he was living in a dingy apartment on the edge of town, working part-time at a warehouse just to keep the lights on. The man who once sneered at me for being small, now couldn't even look people in the eye. But fate wasn't done humiliating him. One morning, as I walked into the office, coffee in hand, I saw a figure standing outside near the entrance. At first, I didn't recognize him. He was thinner, grayer, dressed in cheap clothes. Then I realized, it was Mark. He wasn't there to confront me. He wasn't there to fight. He was standing near the building, staring up at it, like a ghost haunting the ruins of his own empire. His shoulders were hunched, his face pale, his eyes empty. For a second, our eyes met. Just a flicker. And in that moment, I saw it. The recognition, the shame, the burning hatred. He knew. He knew I had destroyed him. And I didn't flinch. I walked right past him, badge in hand, pushing open the doors to the company that was now mine to shape. Behind me, I could feel his gaze burning into my back, but he didn't say a word. He couldn't. He had no power left. That was the moment I knew my revenge was complete. Not because I ruined him financially. Not because I exposed him. Not even because I humiliated him. It was because I took back everything he stole from me. My dignity, my career, my future, and I turned it into something greater than he ever had. He wanted me to be small. He wanted me to disappear. Instead, I rose higher than he ever dreamed. and he had to watch it happen. So yes, maybe revenge doesn't fix everything. Maybe it doesn't heal the scars or erase the memory of that humiliation. But standing in my office, successful, respected, and finally at peace, while Mark wasted away in the shadows, that felt like victory. That felt like justice. And I'd do it all over again. But now I'll leave it to you. What do you think? Was I right to destroy him so completely? Or should I have walked away and let karma do the work? Would you have taken revenge like I did?